everyone, welcome to BullCaster, a talk show for all crypto bulls. Here we're to discuss most exciting industry topics with the best industry experts, influencers, and remarkable personalities. I'm Constantin Kogan, co-founder at BullPerks, and we're excited to welcome our today's guest, Alexandra Golding, a venture associate and Delphi Digital, and a prominent crypto research investment from a venture studio firm and a research shop. I remember when they just started, they're like incredible team, and very excited that Alex joined them. Alex previously founded Help Hope, an impact investing advisory firm focused on housing, education, and blockchain. He has an experience of educating family offices, CIOs, conducting seminars in universities up to United Nations. He was also an investor in Solana Ventures, contributing to setting up their internal policies, procedures, and investing in early stage startups. Alex, really, good to have you here. Welcome.
Thanks, Constantine. It's great to be here. It's good to see you again.
I'm sure we can learn a lot from you, and obviously this is an interesting time. We're having this podcast, right, at a time of this a different cycle, so to speak. We met already several years ago when there was a very different sentiment in the market. Right now, we hear the news that SEC is trying to go after a lot of top projects and even one of the biggest layer ones. And I'm curious to, maybe you can tell really in few words, how did you even start your journey in VC and blockchain?
Yeah, so happy to. So about 7 years ago, I moved home to take care of my dad. He was very ill, and I had taken him to the hospital and stuff, and I couldn't work like a normal job, so I started my own business. That business was a conference company, and I focused on the niche of finance called impact investing. At the same, and so during the day I was doing these conferences, and at night I was trading crypto like everyone was back in 2016 and 17 and 18. And I just, really fell in love with crypto, and I loved the ethos, and was able to merge my conference business with that with my passion for crypto. So we were doing impact investing and through crypto, and I co-created blockchain for impact at the United Nations back in 2018. So that was more than 5 years ago now. And at the time, companies and investors would come to me and they'd be like, how do we do due diligence? The investors would say, and the companies would say, how do we meet investors? And so I put together frameworks, intellectual frameworks and analysis frameworks to answer both these questions. And over time, that led to us making more than 10 investments. One of those companies is doing over 60 million in revenue per year now. And we'll probably have some sort of liquidity event in a couple of years. I've had another liquidity event and several decentralized liquidity events. But fast forward to 2020, COVID hit, and I had to shut down my business because COVID and conferences, they don't go well together. And during that time, I was applying for jobs and trying to do other things because this was still before DeFi summer really took off. And I was able to enroll in a graduate degree program at George Washington University, where they gave me a scholarship and also a fellowship, and I did some financial research for them. And during that time, a lot of my consulting contracts came back, and I was also able to work at Solana Labs over that summer. And so for that summer job, I worked for them helping with the conference and some business development work, but mostly, I'd say primarily my responsibilities were in investing. And so I leveraged the last 4.5 years of advising family offices and making my own investments into this institutional setting, where I was able to do a lot of the core Solana summer investments for them. And then I ended up leaving and graduating early, go back to school, graduating early, graduating with a 4.0 and a perfect score, and as valedictorian of my class, and joining Delphi Digital. And Delphi, I'll briefly talk about Delphi for people who don't know it. We're an international crypto conglomerate with 3 divisions, right? We have our core and the roots of the company is research and data. We have a lot of people there. I think we put out the best research in the business. If anyone is interested in a subscription, just send me a DM on Twitter, and I'm happy to figure out a little discount code for you. And then we have a venture studio where we built 2 formerly unicorn protocols on Terra that have since pivoted to Cosmos, and we're building out the DeFi ecosystem on Cosmos. We have recently launched a hackathon and an accelerator on Cosmos through that division. Then there's Delphi Ventures where I sit. So, we're an investment team of about 10. We have about 150 portfolio companies. Our sweet spot is really pre-seed and seed because we really like to roll up our sleeves and be very hands-on with our portcos. We're very helpful in terms of corporate strategy, corporate budgeting, resource allocation, thinking through like incentive design, thinking through like the customer journey and like what will make the product sticky. And we've worked on a lot of the core DeFi and gaming protocols as investors and researchers. And so that's Delphi, and that's me in a nutshell. I've been here about 18 months now. I've made several investments on our behalf. I've looked at over 1,500 deals, I'd say. No, that's an inflation. I'd say it's probably more like 1,200 deals by now. Anyways, and so yeah, constantly looking at deals, constantly talking to founders. I also do these office hours where founders can come to me and they can say, why aren't we getting traction? What is wrong with our marketing? How should we approach investors? And I'm happy to do that free of charge. I just like a service from Delphi to the entrepreneurial community.
No, thank you for sharing. I think, yeah, that's an amazing journey, and Delphi is definitely like one of those firms that people want to have on the cap table, right? So, and it's amazing that you guys are still deploying even in this market, right? That's I think that shows a caliber, like of real people who really believe in the markets, regardless of all the cycles, right? So, just for someone who's like, let's say, want to understand better, like, what made you be excited about specifically venture capital, right? What do you think, like, for example, what is the journey between like a crypto hobbyist that invests in, let's say, secondary markets, right? Just I'm trying to understand what's out there, and someone who would deploy to a venture firm like yours.
Yeah, I appreciate the question because it stems with my passion of having started businesses before. And I love just kind of be on the cutting edge of business. And as an investor, I can be there talking to people who are creating the future, advising them, walking through tough scenarios with them, intellectually sparring with them, helping them build their business with financial and like social capital and some intellectual analysis. And that's what gets me out of bed in the morning, is I want to be there, like, on the cutting edge of things, working alongside people.
And what would you advise people who want to get there, right? So they want to somehow get into their first venture firm, like, and they want to be useful, they want to create this traction, but they never had this experience before.
Yeah, so I think that in crypto, it's a little different from the non-crypto world, as I say, the rest of the world. But uh, in crypto, everything moves at light speed. So even if and there's no what's sort of bias, if you're young or old, if you're from Europe, Africa, America, you just have to work. So crypto is a pure meritocracy. So what I would suggest is for anyone who wants to get to crypto VC, it's you have to like be living and breathing it, right? You can't go to the crypto VC and be like, if you hire me, I will learn. You have to come kind of already being involved in the community, showing you have connections, showing you understand the basics and intermediate levels of crypto, if not advanced. Whenever you apply, this is both rest of world and crypto world. If you're going to interview, make sure you have a deal ready so that way you can show people that you have like an origination network, that you've like done analysis on it, and that they can respect your analysis and rely upon it. And so that's how I would suggest going about it. And don't give up, right? Like for me, when I was working for Solana, I had sent out tons of emails and Twitter messages and whatnot to other companies because I had wanted an internship outside of crypto. And then I was like, you know what? Like they're really building some really interesting stuff over there. Let me go back to crypto and like try to be more involved in the day-to-day there. And so I sent DMs to Raj. I sent a message to Rohan from Dapper. I sent an email to Barry Silbert from DCG. And for Barry, I sent him an email with a title that said, the MBA summer intern who's going to make you $200 million, right? And you have to be assertive, right? I didn't have his email. I had to figure out a way to get his email. I had to figure out a way to get his attention. And the same with Raj, right? I knew that Raj from Solana, at the time, Solana was having some trouble with like their validator set. And so I DM'd him on Twitter. And I said, look, I've got the perfect solution for you. I will solve this for you. But then I'd like to be on your investments team. Here are my qualifications. Here's why I'm good. Here's a deal for you right now. and so on and so forth. And so they gave me an interview, right? And the rest is history.
Hmm.
You have to go get it, and you have to show people that you can solve their problems, not ask them to solve your problem.
Yeah. Another way, what you're saying is to bring value. Like first bring value to the table and then kind of ask something as opposed to 99% of the people who are like doing the opposite, right? So and it's an amazing tip. Like it's a very ballsy move to send this email. So that was good. And yeah, so in other way, you have to be also entrepreneurial, right? And my question to you would be also like, I think right now the skepticism due to what's happening in the world and specifically in crypto is a lot of like, again, coming back the skepticism, why crypto? So if you were to summarize really maybe major three reasons why you believe like crypto VC is better than a traditional VC.
Well, I think it stems down to what you believe in, right? There's always this push and pull between centralized and decentralized power structures.
Mhm.
So do you believe that all power should be in certain centralized structures, that there should be no fail safes in case they have issues? If you do, then don't do crypto. If you don't, then do crypto, right? And so I think that's the core thing. And this ties down to everything from the Satoshi's vision of disintermediating and automating and making transparent the like financial incumbents who really failed us in 2008, 2009. And I was like in college and working in finance like over the summers and during my semesters during the financial crisis. I remember like people's retirement funds getting completely washed away. I remember all that. So like Satoshi's vision really speaks to me. And if you believe in like people being able to have the ability to self custody, like a portion or all of their assets, then crypto, right? Because banking's not meant for that. And we didn't have, and banking and the incumbent structures were designed in a low tech world, right? Banking was not something that was created in the year 2000. Banking was created hundreds of years ago when you literally could not like keep your wealth on a USB key, or you couldn't keep your wealth in the cloud, or you couldn't keep your wealth wherever. But today you can. And so like why not take advantage of these advances in technology and encourage and fund investors and technologists and innovators to build that out. So those are I think like the two main ways, the two main reasons why I'm involved in crypto, why I think other people should be involved in crypto.
So, I mean, before we jump into the questions from the audience, last question I'll ask you. Well, what do you think? When will we see the reversal of the trend? Right? Like people are promising that Bitcoin halving is coming, so that's gonna kind of traditionally be precursor of the bull trend, right? So, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I don't forecast the future. I think it gets worse before it gets better. People are texting me like, are we at peak FUD yet? I don't think so. I think there's more FUD to come. I think there's like
Hmm.
more issues to come. Um, and so I do think it gets worse before it gets better. I do think that things will get better. I don't know if it'll get better in the way that people hope or expect it to. I think it might take a different form because in the past there was no regulation kind of putting boundaries around the form that a bull market could take. Now you have that. You also have more entrants in the market, and it's much more easily accessible than it was 7 years ago, right? I remember going on Coinbase's website in 2015, and it was like almost impossible to use. And now you've got 1,000 or 2,000 mainstream exchanges, 20,000 plus tokens, a flourishing DeFi ecosystem. Um, and so I think that as with that ease of access, with the parameterization or boundary setting from various governments across the world, and even though they claim to not be coordinating this, I think to some level they are at least having discussions, even if it's just over cocktails at the end of a conference. Um, that the next bull run will look different from before. And one last thing in terms of like new entrants, right? Basic principle of life is the easier it is for people to access, and the more people who do access something or who do participate in the ecosystem, the
Hmm.
in general, the next entrant into an ecosystem is willing to work for less marginal profit. So if in the last run you were seeing huge returns, in the next run you'll see lower returns, right? On average, because more participants, each one in order to get a piece of that is willing to work for less because they have some FOMO that if they don't offer a lower amount of work for profit. They don't accept a lower amount of profit for the work or the investments that they do, that they will miss out completely. Ergo, lower pie for everyone. So people just need to be aware of that. And that's where I think you're going to see a reshuffling of who people consider to be top tier investors and who people consider to be top tier researchers. And this is why we have such a strong focus at Delphi on research, and why we have such a strong focus on bottoms up and tops down fundamental analysis of our investments, is because we want to make sure that we're putting giving it our full intellectual capital and our full analysis when we're doing investments, so that we can stay at the cutting edge of things and not be left behind.
Yeah, that's definitely the way to do it. Like, the more information you have, the more power we have right now, I think. So thank you for the answers. And I want our audience to also be included. We already collected a lot of questions. I'll just start over and we go like a blitz session, right? Captain Huddle from YouTube is asking, like, are there any specific factors or criteria that you prioritize when evaluating investment opportunities?
Yeah, so we look at a bunch, right? We look at corporate strategy, we look at trend data, we look at perceived quality of the team, perceived risk in the investment, perceived amount of innovation, perceived market sizing. Has the team figured out what the market size is? Has the team figured out how to capture as much of that market as possible? Is what the team is saying consistent with their core thesis, right? If the core thesis is that they're building a decentralized stablecoin, but then the stablecoin that they propose to us is not really decentralized, is that that's inconsistent? So there's more factors, but these are some of the big ones.
The core. Got it. Nas is like New York from Twitter. With the volatile nature of the crypto market, how do you manage risk and navigate the challenges associated with investing in the space? Are there any strategies you employ to protect investors' capital?
So we don't have outside investors' capital. We're a prop shop. We only invest our own money. And I can't really talk about our risk management structures, but we do have risk management structures in place.
Maybe something that you can advise on a general level, how to navigate and risk.
Yeah, I mean, be on the lookout for scams. So that's priority one, right? Don't invest in scams, right? In crypto, you always have to be aware of what's going on. So no days off, right? I remember over Christmas this last year, a team launched a token that I really want, and I really want a part of it, and I missed it because it was the holidays, and I was visiting my family in another country, and jet lag, blah 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 blah, and was just hoping that people weren't going to do something really DeFi native over the holidays, but guess what they did? So just be aware, because part of risk is how much. So that's the opposite of risk. It's chasing return, but still same thing, right? You can watch an investment go to zero really fast if you're not on top of it. In terms of primary sales stuff, make sure that your legal docs are in order. Make sure you've done analysis. You have no idea how many people claim to be VCs. They don't even think about it. They're just yeah, here's some money. And I call this, and this is particularly big in crypto because I think a lot of people have learned how to invest from reading articles or social media from people who have never invested themselves or have only done a little bit of investing, and they don't have fully built out risk models. And so oh yeah, I like the vibe or I like the team, but they don't know why they like the team. So make sure that everything you're doing has justification and you can answer the question why. And one exercise I do with myself is I sit and I'll ask myself why 5 times in a row. So if my thesis is X, I say, why is my thesis X? Okay, well, why does that data, or why does my answer to that justification true? And then where did that data come from? And so you just kind of keep going down this rabbit hole. Why? And you'll get to some hard truths at the end.
That's actually useful advice. And then considering security there, Moxie from YouTube is asking, security is a major concern in crypto industry, and with numerous hacks recently and the scams occurring every day, how do you assess the security measures and protocols of a project before considering for your investments?
Yeah, so this is done on a case-by-case basis, right? But generally speaking, we recommend several like cybersecurity and audit firms to people. They get their pick. To our investments, they get their pick. Maybe we do some maybe we might even request to review the GitHub before and like get access to the private GitHub, and I'll go through it, or my colleagues will go through and like look at it and see like, does this code make sense? Are there any glaring errors? Um, so those are some of the methods in which we assess kind of like cybersecurity and like logic risk, like smart contract logic risk. And maybe we'll even encourage people, we'll often encourage people to get multiple audits and to get like multiple, like maybe like those audits could be like security audit contests or auctions, where in an auction you might have 20 people reviewing the code, right? So you get, and if you do two of those, now you've got 40 to 50 auditors looking at the code. It doesn't guarantee that there'll be no issues, but I do believe that it significantly reduces the amount of risk that they end up taking once they launch.
Mm-hmm. So, as an interesting question, actually, Mark Twain from Twitter. What do you believe sets successful crypto startups apart from those that fail? Have you seen the silver lining?
Yeah, so I think that there's a few things. One is like you pretty much have to be crypto native. So like with every cycle, there's a bunch of people who come into crypto who've never done crypto before or who've spent like a month in crypto. And it's the same projects every single time. It's wealth management on chain, it's a borrow lend, it's a DEX, it's let me send money to a Twitter account. I don't know, it's something like that, right? And so you see the same stuff every time. So you immediately get rid of those. No shit, I forgot the question.
What sets successful crypto projects apart, like
Yeah,
from
so
those?
first you look for the deal breakers. Then you look for, core then it's just traditional core like analysis, right? Which is the same in and out of crypto. Are there risks endemic to this vertical? What are they? Are there, is someone serving the broad needs of a few, or the few needs of the many, right? Like Uniswap serves very few needs, but of a lot of people, right? So Uniswap is like just swapping and like maybe some NFT stuff, right? Or LP. It's like one or two or three products or services, but everyone needs it. And then you have other products that are much more niche, right? Only a few people need it, but maybe they need like multiple things. And so we look at that. These are some of the things that we look at. You might say about team, if it's in a vertical where we think there's a lot of risk. For instance, like if you're building a liquid staking token protocol, probably not a lot of risk there. There's some smart contract risk, or if you're building like a stable swap, not a lot of risk. So the team doesn't really need to be that excellent. You don't need a brigadier general or the equivalent, right? Running a stable swap. Whereas when Delphi Labs was building on Terra, we knew and we had published our research that said that there were issues there, potential issues, and we were willing to take that risk, but we put our best people on it, right? Because if there were issues, we could pivot, and we have pivoted. We pivoted to Cosmos, and we got some very, very cool like roadmaps and plans and things happening over in our Mars and Astroport ecosystem. So that's a little bit about team and how we analyze team.
Mm-hmm. No, that's actually very helpful, and it's good to also admit some of the things that you failed and always learn from them, persevere. So Metaverse Daily from YouTube is asking, can you share an example of a successful crypto investment you've made and explain what made it stand out? What lesson did you learn from that particular investment?
So I don't want to speak for Delphi as a whole, right? And so I'm gonna like decline this one because I also don't want any portfolio companies to get jealous or anything, right? We have 150. I don't want anyone, and several of them are very high level, very marquee investments, and I don't want anyone to feel slighted. So I'm just gonna politely decline this question, but I thank you.
Okay. Can we do the following? You don't, without naming, without telling the brand name, maybe just describe the core of the idea and why you think that that's particularly stood out.
Yeah, so there's one in particular where I'm thinking where but there's two, right? One was in a sector that was completely ignored. People thought that this sector will never be big on chain. And we were like, no, no, we really think that like there's a need to decentralize the power in this industry, and uh with the right how do I say this without giving it all away? With the right like services and with the right tapping into the right needs of the customer, and identifying the right target market, uh, that we would be able to like jointly build like a really, really cool tokenomic like system. And that was true. And in the beginning, it worked out really well because again, people were not focused on this sector. So there weren't a lot of like vulture airdrop hunters. There weren't a lot of other people distorting like the product market fit journey. And it found it. And then once it found it, like it blew up in a in a very good way. And we learned though from that journey that how do you plan for when things become bigger than your wildest dreams? How do you like account for that in your corporate strategy? How do you account for that in your token strategy? And because you do have to think of that about that ahead of time on the off chance. And again, these chances to a bystander, to a layperson, are probably less than 1%. Like that if someone had looked at this and said, "Oh, this is going to get huge," um, but it happened, and so you have to plan for that ahead of time. And that's been a very humbling, but also very like intellectually interesting process, is learning when things go really well, or learning when things like do the opposite.
I think I even know what project you're talking about. Okay, but I will not point it out specifically. But it was a good guessing game. Okay.
Yeah.
Sava Sukar from YouTube is asking, what do you think future of blockchain is? And there are some scam projects disabling to truth to crypto. So I guess it's more about like, how to differentiate like, the future and the potential projects from the scams, or maybe people who are just not able to deliver.
So it's hard to tell who will not be able to deliver. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's hard to tell who will not deliver, because especially if you're investing. So I'm going to talk about two different types of investing. If you're a disciplined investor, even the most disciplined sometimes get waylaid during the height of a bull run because nothing makes sense, right? Like things just don't make sense. So, and so I think it's for that reason that you have to have a set of questions when you're doing your due diligence that are standardized and formalized, and also track your analysis. So one of the things I do is I have a matrix, and I go through and I can track my thinking over time. Then I can look back and I can say, was my thinking clouded by, public sentiment, for instance, a bull run? Was my thinking, or the opposite? Was my thinking clouded by negative sentiment, like a bear market? And so I think that you have to have a set of questions that you've thought about ahead of time that dive deep into the product, the team, the strategy, the token econ, various risks that could be there, like industry, like vertical specific risks, as well as like broader market risks, the competition. And then if you do that, you'll pretty much be able to see who the scammers are, right? Because the scammers won't be able to answer most of your questions. Or if they do, they're not going to answer them with sufficient specificity to satisfy you. And then if you can track your thinking over time, and let's say you review that every 3 to 6 months, you'll probably be able to pick out ahead of time which teams will shut down without delivering a product, or which teams you need to shut down because they're never going to deliver a product, et cetera, et cetera.
Perfect. I think that's already a brilliant summary, like for someone who wants to just like at least try to get into the space. And maybe last thing, like where you're gonna say like where do you want people to find you? Like, is it Twitter, LinkedIn, or?
Oh yeah, Twitter's great. My handle's a little wonky because it's from my old impact investing business. Should I put it in the chat? How do I do it? It's not easy to
We'll
spell.
add it afterwards. Don't worry about it. We're added to the description of the.
Yeah, I think Twitter's best. I love that we have this public square that's primarily mostly Twitter crypto people, right? Like crypto is one of the biggest drivers of usage for Twitter. Um, and I love that simultaneously, that's also the venue where American journalists and politicians, sorry, American journalists and politicians, like, and that's their primary like method of social media, or platform for social media usage. So we're right there, like alongside both our friends and the people who would like to see some changes to the industry. Um, and the irony just makes me laugh like every day. So yeah, Twitter's good for me. My DMs are open.
Well, perfect. And definitely, like, I'm sure we can do maybe Twitter Spaces next time and invite more people to discuss the market trends and everything. But for now, like, really thank you, Alex, and thank you for sharing your thoughts, your wisdom, and I'm sure people will go find you on Twitter. Like, definitely go take a look at Delphi Digital, and they have one of the top research, in the industry, and definitely we recommend, just like, if you are an institution, for sure, like, you should consider it, like, for yourself. Even if you're retail, but you already, like, professionally angel investing, like, it's good for you to understand it better. And thank you everyone for joining BullCaster today. We're going to be here like in another 2 weeks, again, live on YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and all the possible lives in the world. So meanwhile, thank you again, Alex, and hope to see you more.
I look forward to it, Constant. Thank you so much for having me. All right, guys. Cheers.